Those who espouse legalism and the keeping of moral codes simply do not and cannot fathom the message of the gospel and the teaching of Jesus Christ. They do not understand what it means to be his disciple. They see what is written in the New Testament as well as the Old and add it to the lists of rules not to break. They make the same grievous mistake which the Pharisees made and tried to enforce upon the earliest churches with their infiltration, something which Paul fought against vociferously. For them it is all about right and wrong, good and bad, white and black, law-keeping or law-breaking. They don't understand that it is this very mindset which defines this hamartia dysfunction at its very root and core. They don't comprehend that separating things between good and bad is an effect of eating the fruit in the garden and was not God-given. We did it to ourselves against his express wishes, and we and the rest of this planet's inhabitants have borne the increasingly disastrous consequences ever since. The legalist doesn't understand that it is hardwired into every living human being so that we can never do anything but sin, that is, operate according to this malfunction from our own neurological and psychological devices. And adding more rules and laws only makes the problem worse, not better. Look at the animals. They have neither rule nor law, yet they all function in their place in the environment and ecosystem, and they do so in innocence. The message of the gospel, the teaching of discipleship, makes no sense to the legalist. When being a disciple is explained to the legalist, to the person operating from his own devices, he immediately assumes you are advocating for anarchy and running riot in the streets. Of course not. He immediately starts quoting biblical passages about how great the Torah is, how wise someone is to follow it, completely misplacing the historical and cultural context of the Torah, as well as its purpose. He cannot fathom God's solution to the human problem. He cannot fathom the idea of God himself being the source of one's actions and words, so that this malfunction becomes impossible to affect them while so doing. He cannot fathom that just as Jesus Christ cooperated with and submitted to God the Father, so that everything he said and did originated with him, so also the path of discipleship is cooperating with and submitting to the Spirit of Christ, with whom we are joined, so that what we say and do originates with Jesus Christ as the head to the members of his body. Would Jesus Christ commit murder? Would he steal? Would he lie? Would he commit adultery or crave what isn't his? No, of course not. God forbid. As Paul observed, there can be no moral law or rule against what the Spirit of Christ produces. And as John observed, what is born from God does not sin. He cannot fathom that our true salvation through Jesus Christ is our salvation from this behavioral malfunction of ours through union with him. And so the legalist assumes that our salvation is salvation from punishment for breaking God's law, which he then raises up onto an altar and worships as though it were God himself, always fearful that God will strike him down if he doesn't do everything written therein. He assumes that our salvation is only about being forgiven for our offenses. But then, and this is what he says to himself, but then are we really forgiven for everything? How could God forgive this grievous offense? No, not even God would forgive that. He does not realize that he is still under the firm control of his dysfunctional mind, which can only understand black and white, right and wrong, good and bad. And so his conception of God, with what he experiences as God, is distorted by this malfunctioning mind into something which more resembles the way he himself thinks. And he ends up worshiping a shadow, which strangely resembles himself, an image, an idol, which looks nothing like the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, an idea of God that has nothing to do with God. The disciple of Jesus Christ is governed by love, joy, peace, patience, trust, kindness, courtesy, and self-control because he is governed by Jesus Christ himself. The disciple of Jesus Christ takes little thought for laws, rules, and regulations because he himself is not governed by them, but his words and actions originate with God the Father through Jesus Christ, and out through the individual. What law could possibly restrain God, who is love himself? What law would need to? To be a disciple of Jesus Christ is to practice channeling him, quite literally, in every moment. It is to practice being his conduit and relinquishing control to him. It is to make one's home in their union with him and stay put there. Laws cannot be enforced where there is no possibility of lawbreaking. Laws have no purpose with a person whose actions originate with love himself. And this is and has always been the chief heresy within the Church, that it is about keeping moral codes and laws, because the legalist, the man functioning from his own devices, cannot comprehend the true nature of the gospel.